What is going on, everybody? It is me again. It's HorrorFan34, and welcome to another video. And I actually briefly mentioned this when I was doing my birthday update. Now that my collection of this guy was building up and up, I figured I would show my collection of this particular actor at some point. And I figured this would be the good time to do it. And of course, it is going to be on Chuck Norris. Now, Chuck Norris, I really do enjoy as an action star. I own 7 of his films. Granted, he only did like 44 films to his credit, but I feel like he should have done a lot more action stuff. I think he deserved a lot more when it came to like he had a lot of really good ones in the 80s and things like that. But I'm going to showcase you guys the films that I have of Chuck Norris, which are right here. Granted, it's only 4 Blu-rays, but one of them is a pack that has 4 films on it, but I'll talk about those in depth. But but I figured now I would show off my Chuck Norris collection. Chuck Norris, definitely one of my favorite action stars. He's up there with Arnold, Stallone, and Van Damme, and Dolph Lundgren. I say Stallone's my favorite, then Arnold, then I would say, then I go Bruce Willis, then Van Damme, and then Dolph Lundgren. So Chuck Norris would probably be like number 6 on my list. Really do enjoy Chuck Norris, and quite a few of his films I enjoy. Now, some off the bat I don't have. Like, I don't have Sidekicks, I don't have The Hitman, or Hellbound, or some of the early ones he did, like Good Guys Wear Black, or An Eye for an Eye. I really want to get the Octagon at some point, but I think that's out of print on Blu-ray. And the DVD is a little pricey, like $25, so I'm not really in a rush to get that at any time soon. But that's one I really do enjoy as well, the Octagon. But I figure I just showcase you guys the ones that I do have of his. And I don't have Missing in Action 3, because I know that has a Shout Factory Blu-ray, but that's out of print too. So, and I really want the Blu-ray of that for the special features, but, out of print, very, very pricey, so not really in a rush to get that either. But I would like to have it one day. But getting on to the films that I do have of Chuck Norris, I'm going in order here from the years. So the first one I have here of his is Silent Rage. Definitely one of Chuck Norris's best performances, one of his best films of all time for him. This is pretty much Chuck Norris's version of a Michael Myers movie. Basically, if you took Chuck Norris and you put him into like either the original Halloween or even Halloween 2, because he's going after a Michael Myers sort of killer. And Chuck Norris has to stop this guy. Chuck Norris plays the sheriff, and there's a murderer, there's a serial killer going around, and he has to find a way to stop this killer. You have a pretty badass fight at the very end between Chuck Norris and the killer. I really like the woman that plays his the girl that he has a romance with. I thought she was really good as well. Forget the actor who plays the killer, but he does really good too. The guy that plays the killer, which is right there. The tagline says it: "Science created him. Now Chuck Norris must destroy him." Silent Rage. One of the 3 films that I would say Chuck Norris got to do that it was close to being a horror film. Like Hellbound was another one, and there's another one that I'm going to talk about at the very end, which is actually my favorite Chuck Norris film. But Silent Rage, definitely one of Chuck Norris's best ones, in my opinion. Now we're getting on to the one that was sort of like the 4 films in one pack. Of course, I show this in the birthday update and the Blu-ray and DVD update as well, but the Chuck Norris Total Attack Pack, which has Lone Wolf McQuade, Code of Silence, Missing in Action, and the Delta Force. All 4 of these I really do enjoy. Lone Wolf McQuade, which is this one here. Lone Wolf McQuade. Whoop. There we go. Lone Wolf McQuade, that's the one where he goes after this drug lord played by David Carradine. David Carradine, greatly missed. Wonderful character actor, Kill Bill, Q the Winged Serpent. And I miss David Carradine, great actor. But, Chuck Norris goes after a drug lord, and there's a war between him and the drug lord and things like that. Lone Wolf McQuade, that's a great one. Because I think Silent Rage was 81, and then Loan of McQuaid was 83. Then after that, he had Code of Silence in 1985. Now, Code of Silence is another great one as well. I'd probably say that's in my top 10 favorites of Chuck Norris. Wouldn't be in my top 5, but I'll mention my top 5 when I get to the very end. But Code of Silence, that's the one where he plays a cop, and there's a gang war going on between these two groups of people, and Chuck Norris has to, and there's a little subplot with Chuck Norris testifying against this cop who shot this innocent teenager, and there's a whole underlying thing with that. He's a by the numbers kind of cop. He's very honest, and he gets caught up in this gang war between these two groups of people, and some of them have corrupt cops in them. So Chuck Norris has to take down the gangs. But that's a great one as well. Definitely one of Chuck Norris's best. And then he had, I think this one, I wonder if this one was 86 or... No, this one was 85 as well, but I guess I'll show that when I do with that one. But then he has Missing in Action, right down there. Missing in Action, great movie, sort of in the vein of Rambo 2 or Uncommon Valor, that deals with rescuing POWs in Vietnam. And Chuck Norris plays Colonel James Braddock. He's rescuing POWs in the Vietnam War. M. Emmett Walsh, who was the bad guy in Raw Courage, and he was in Critters and Blade Runner and a lot of other movies, plays Chuck Norris's buddy who helps him out. Missing in Action, if you enjoy films like, Rambo 2, sort of POW Vietnam movies, that's definitely one to check out as well for Chuck Norris. And then the last one that it has here is one of my personal favorites, The Delta Force. That's the one where Chuck Norris plays a guy, and there's these terrorists that take over this airplane, headed by Robert Forster, may he rest in peace, Robert Forster, Alligator, and Jackie Brown, lone hero, vigilante, great actor, greatly missed Robert Forster. The Delta Force, I would say, is one of my personal favorites of Chuck Norris, because even though Chuck Norris is not really in the first half of the film, it's more of the second half for Chuck Norris. I like the fact that it's two films sort of in one, because it is a 2-hour and some change of running time for a movie, and it's really two films in one. The first half deals with the hostages and the terrorists, headed by Robert Forster. And you have some great character actors that are some of the hostages. You have George Kennedy from Creepshow 2 and Cool Hand Luke and the Naked Gun films. You have Shelley Winters from the original Poseidon Adventure. You have... I'm trying to think who else you have. I think it says it here. You have Kim Delaney, like I said, George Kennedy, Robert Vaughn, who was in the original Magnificent Seven, Martin Balsam, I think that's how you say his name. He was in the original Psycho. He was in Cape Fear with Robert De Niro. He's been in a lot of movies. Yeah, basically it's these terrorists that take these innocent people hostage, and the second half pretty much is Chuck Norris and Lee Marvin going after the bad guys, and Chuck Norris having a badass fight at the very end with Robert Forster. Yeah, the Delta Force, definitely one of my personal favorites of Chuck Norris. Now we're getting onto this one, Missing in Action 2, The Beginning, which was, because this is actually the first of the Missing in Action films, because this and the first movie were filmed back-to-back, and the first film became more well-received than this did. So they released Missing in Action the first, even though that was supposed to be the second film. So then they just made this Missing in Action 2 and made it a prequel. So this happens before the first film. Missing in Action 2, this is the one with, there's a rescue mission by this colonel, and Chuck Norris has to, as James Braddock, has to save these people. Soon Tech O, I know that's a guy, I forget what some of the films he's in, but he's a good actor. But all three of the Missing in Action films I enjoy. I love the third one too, and I like this one too. But I say the first Missing in Action is the best one, with him and Emmett Walsh together. But that's a good one too. And the last one I have here for my Chuck Norris collection is actually the one that's actually my favorite of his, and that is The Hero and the Terror. My personal favorite Chuck Norris film. Oh, and also for Chuck Norris, too, I don't own Firewalker either. That's the one he did with Louis Gossett Jr. I don't have Delta Force 2. So I got to get a few more, but I do have a pretty decent amount. And this is a way to cap it off my Chuck Norris collection, but showing my favorite of his. Now, like I said, this is the third film, sort of like Silent Rage and Hellbound, that he got to do that was close to being a horror movie, where Chuck Norris plays Danny O'Brien, who's a homicide detective, and many years ago he tracked down this killer, Simon Moon, played by Jack O'Halloran from Superman 2, which sadly, recently we just lost Richard Donner. May he rest in peace. Just lost him today. Very sad. But, yeah, so Chuck Norris played this guy who captured this killer, but he caught a lucky break, and people were calling him the hero that stopped the terror. And Chuck Norris is like, I don't like when they call me a hero. I got lucky. So then Simon Moon is back many years later because he breaks out of prison, and Chuck Norris has to go after this killer once again. I love the whole ending, too. The whole ending has a sort of like a Phantom of the Opera vibe, because the killer hides in this movie theater, and you have a really great finale where Chuck Norris is searching throughout this abandoned movie theater trying to find the killer and things like that. You can really get a sense of like a little bit of a vibe of Phantom of the Opera. But Chuck Norris definitely gives a very strong performance. Steve James, who was in a lot of Chuck Norris films, he was in, I believe he was in the Delta Force, and he also worked on Vigilante as well with Robert Forster, of course, American Ninja 1 and 2, and things like that. Steve James, a good action star, also no longer with us anymore either. I thought this film was very, very well done. Very strong performance by Chuck Norris. You know, Jack O'Halloran as the killer, very creepy, very good performance for him. You know, Steve James, for the bit he has, is pretty good. And Menahem Golan, who was the head of Cannon Films around that time, and Cannon Films was pretty big. You know, Menahem Golan directed Over the Top for Cannon Films, and I don't know if he had a hand in like some of the Death Wish films for Cannon Films, maybe for Death Wish 3, but he also, you know, for the Missing in Action films were Cannon Films, so Menahem Golan had a lot to do with those. So, but yeah, that is my Chuck Norris collection. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I know it was like 13 minutes long, but I like to give details about these and make these videos a little bit longer for you guys, so that way I can give you guys some details and some information, things like that. Because I like to talk and elaborate on stuff. You know, I just kind of don't like to say like, oh, here it is, next, and things like that. I like to talk to you guys about these things, and that's why I enjoy doing long videos like this. So hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.